Welcome to Mind Tricks Radio, where we'll explore contemporary topics in psychology through interviewing creative and innovative thinkers in the field. I'm your host, Dr. Aaron Kaplan. Thanks for tuning in. In today's episode of Mind Tricks, I interviewed Dr. Albert Ellis, a pioneering figure in the field of psychology. Dr. Ellis is renowned for developing Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy, or REBT, which is a groundbreaking approach that emphasizes the role of rational thinking in emotional well-being. With a career spanning over 6 decades, Dr. Ellis has authored more than 80 books and numerous articles, profoundly influencing both clinical practice and psychological theory. Dr. Ellis's work has been instrumental in shifting the focus from traditional psychoanalysis to more cognitive and behavioral approaches. I spoke with Dr. Ellis by Zoom while he was at his home in New York City. This episode is the 4th in a series of episodes where I utilize artificial intelligence in an effort to interview prominent contributors to the field of psychology who have passed away. Clearly, the interview is, fake, as my guests are no longer alive. The voices of my guests are artificial clones of their actual voices, and their responses have been generated through the use of AI. I would be very interested to receive your feedback on what you think of this project and any suggestions you may have for future interviews. Please note that content for this episode has been gleaned through publicly available writings, lectures, and research, and is meant for educational and historical exploration only. There is no financial gain, sponsorship, or commercial intent associated with this project. The responses you hear are generated by AI models trained on Dr. Ellis's known work and do not represent an actual statement, endorsement, or official position from Dr. Ellis's estate, family, or any affiliated institution. This is a speculative and academic recreation meant to celebrate and discuss Dr. Ellis's contributions to psychology. Dr. Ellis, thank you so much for being here today and joining me on the Mind Tricks Radio podcast.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
How's life in New York City today?
New York, still as lively and chaotic as ever, which suits me just fine. I've lived here my whole life and I wouldn't have it any other way. There's always something happening, always someone to talk to, always another challenge to take on. It keeps me on my toes.
I bet. I love the hustle of New York City when I visit.
You're pretty far away, all the way out there in the Pacific Ocean.
Yes, that's right.
Well, I'm sure you still have your fair share of irrational people running around, even with all the sun and great weather.
No doubt about that. So, Dr. Ellis, I'm really excited to speak with you today about your contributions to the field through REBT and the foundations this laid for cognitive behavioral therapy. But before we get into that, I have a vivid picture in mind of the stories I've heard of you doing ad hoc therapy in the park in New York, and that always struck me as a really cool activity. Do you still do that?
Oh, those park therapy days. Yeah, that was something. Back then, I figured why waste time sitting in an office when I could go straight to the people who needed help. So I set up shop in Bryant Park, sat people down, and started challenging their rational thinking right then and there. No fancy couches, no endless analysis, just straight talk and practical advice. And you know what? It worked. People walked in miserable, convinced their lives were unbearable, and walked out realizing they were making themselves suffer with their own damn irrational thinking.
It sounds like it was sort of intensive one-session therapy on the fly.
Who says you need to lie on some leather couch 5 days a week for years on end in order to get something out of it? You're dead before you see any gains.
True.
But no, I don't do it anymore. Not in the park. I got busier, and frankly, New York has enough street performers as it is. I moved into more structured settings, private practice, running the institute so I could train other therapists to do this work. But those park sessions, damn good training ground.
You mentioned the institute. Did you mean the Albert Ellis Institute?
Yes, this is the prominent center for the practice and teaching of REBT.
Back to Bryant Park, if you don't mind. What were those sessions in the park like? Could you describe it further?
Oh, they were informal as hell, but they got the job done. I'd set up in Bryant Park, pull up a chair, and people would wander over with all sorts of problems. Relationship messes, anxiety, career crises, you name it. And instead of nodding along and asking, "How does that make you feel?" I'd cut straight to the point. All right, what are you telling yourself that's making you miserable? And let me tell you, people's thinking was a disaster. They'd be awfulizing, masturbating, telling themselves they couldn't stand things that were totally standable. So I challenged them right there on the spot. Who says your relationship must be perfect? Where's the law that says you should never feel any discomfort? And when they actually stopped to think about it, boom, something shifted. Sometimes it got intense. People don't like being told they're making themselves suffer. But other times it was liberating. You could see it on their faces the moment they realized they didn't have to keep torturing themselves with irrational thinking. For me, that park was a real-world lab where therapy wasn't just a theory, but something you could actually use to change your life. It was some of the best damn training I ever had.
Wow, I would have loved to witness that. Sounds like a great training ground for you to bust your chops and hone your skills in REBT. But before we go on, I'd like to get to know you a little better. Could you tell me a bit about your background and what led you to your career path and focus on REBT?
Well, let me tell you a true story. People think I was always this brash, straight-talking guy, but when I was younger, I was immensely shy.
That's hard to believe.
It's true, and I was a terrified wreck when it came to talking to women. I mean, I was scared to death of rejection. I'd get all anxious, make excuses, and avoid situations where I might get shot down. But then I thought, well, this is irrational as hell. I was walking around believing some ridiculous crap, like if a woman rejects me, it means I'm unlovable. Rejection would be unbearable. I'd just die of embarrassment. So I decided to face it head on. I marched myself over to the Bronx Botanical Gardens and made a commitment. I was going to approach 100 women and ask each one out. No matter how much I stammered, how much I sweated, or how many turned me down, I was going to do it.
Oh, wow. Nerve-wracking for sure.
Of course it was. How do you think it went?
Not so well.
Most of them said no. Big shock, right? But guess what? I didn't die. I didn't collapse into a pile of failure. I just learned that rejection is nothing but a momentary discomfort. It doesn't define you. By the time I got to the 100th woman, I was practically immune to rejection. It was like a vaccine against fear.
You were numb to it by then, I suppose.
Inoculated. Fear only controls you if you let it. The way to get over fear is to face it repeatedly until it loses its power. And no, you won't die of embarrassment. That's what I try to teach people in REBT. If you've got a fear, whether it's public speaking, dating, or just asserting yourself, you've got to throw yourself into it. Expose yourself to what you fear over and over until your brain stops making such a damn fuss about it. So, yeah, I went from a scared kid avoiding eye contact to a guy who ended up teaching millions of people how to deal with their own irrational fears. And all because I forced myself to ask out 100 women in a park. Best damn exposure therapy I ever did.
Okay, well, aside from your shyness as a child, can you please tell me a bit about your professional background? How did you get started in the field?
Well, I started out as a psychoanalyst. Sat there for years listening to people talk and talk and talk. I got my PhD at Columbia, trained at the Karen Horney Institute, and studied under the psychoanalytic greats. I did the whole thing. Free association, dream analysis, digging through childhood memories. I spent about a decade practicing and supervising, really trying to make it work. And to be fair, it helped some people eventually. But most of the time, people kept coming back week after week, talking in circles, never changing much.
So where did the idea for a new approach come from?
Well, I started looking at philosophy, especially the Stoics. They had it figured out 2,000 years ago. This isn't new stuff for sure. Even the Greeks understood the importance of thought. People are not disturbed by things, but by their view of things. That hit me like a ton of bricks. I realized that instead of just digging through the past, we needed to focus on how people were thinking right now, how they were making themselves miserable with irrational beliefs. I started experimenting, challenging my clients directly on their thinking, and boom, they started improving in weeks, not years. That's when I knew I was onto something, which later became Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy.
That must have been a pretty radical shift at the time. What did your supervisors and colleagues think when you started breaking from psychoanalysis?
Oh, they thought I was nuts. They called me a heretic, said I was abandoning depth psychology for something shallow. My psychoanalytic supervisors told me I was short-circuiting the process, that real change had to come from deep, long analysis. But I'd seen enough. I knew that just analyzing problems wasn't fixing them. So I said, to hell with it. In 1953, I walked away from psychoanalysis completely, set up my own practice, started doing straight-up cognitive work, and never looked back. And let me tell you, my clients were a hell of a lot happier for it.
You know, I recently had Carl Jung on my podcast as a guest. I would suppose you and he are quite opposite in your approaches to psychology, would you say?
Oh, absolutely. Sure, Jung was brilliant, a brilliant mind who was off in la-la land with all his archetypes, collective unconscious and mystical cosmic mumbo-jumbo. While Jung was sitting by Lake Zurich pondering the deep, mysterious forces of the human psyche, I was in Bryant Park telling people to cut the crap and stop making themselves miserable. That's the difference. Jung wanted to explore your inner mythology. I want to help you stop ruining your own damn life. I don't deal in fairy tales or symbolic nonsense. I deal in real-world solutions that actually work.
Okay, so first off, tell me a bit about Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy. What are some of the key components of REBT?
It's really about one thing. Stop thinking irrationally and making yourself miserable. Your emotions don't come out of nowhere. They come from your beliefs about what happens to you. That's why we use the ABC model.
Okay, got it. That makes sense. The ABC model has come to be a hallmark feature of REBT and cognitive therapy in general.
Yes, that's right. It goes something like this. The A is the activating event. Something happens. The B is the belief. You tell yourself something about the thing that happened. About the A, that is, the activating event. Then the C is the consequence. These are the emotions and behaviors that follow from the beliefs. That is, the emotions and behaviors are consequences of the thoughts, or the B's. And here's the problem. Most people don't even realize that B, their beliefs, is what's screwing them up. They think their emotions are just natural reactions, but they're actually the result of irrational, self-defeating thinking.
Aha. Thank you. Could you give an example?
Sure, suppose you fail a test. That's A. Now you could believe, well, that sucks. I'll study harder next time, and you'll just feel a little disappointed. The B is what you tell yourself, and the C is what you are feeling. You could tell yourself, I'm a total failure, I'll never succeed, this is unbearable. And now you're feeling anxious, depressed, and paralyzed. The test didn't do that to you. Your own damn thoughts did. The test is just a piece of paper with scribbles on it. Or on a computer, whatever kids use these days to take tests. That's where REBT comes in. We challenge those irrational beliefs and replace them with rational, realistic thinking. You see, people love to beat themselves up. But you are not your mistakes. You're a fallible human like everyone else. And of course that's fine. Bottom line, REBT isn't about just feeling better. It's about thinking better, so you stop making yourself miserable in the first place.
I recall reading your classic book, Reason and Emotion in Psychotherapy, when I was a graduate student. I really resonated with the core beliefs you identified as quite common among people. There's sort of a short list of these you focus on, is that correct?
You bet. I laid out some of the biggest mental traps people fall into. I call them core irrational beliefs. These are the self-defeating thoughts that make people miserable. First is demandingness, the idea that the world, other people, or even you must be a certain way. I must succeed. People must treat me fairly. Life must be easy. Well, guess what? The universe doesn't give a damn about your musts. The world is the way it is, not the way you demand it to be. Then there's awfulizing, the habit of blowing things way out of proportion. This is the worst thing ever. I can't stand it. No, it's not the worst thing ever. You don't like it, fine, but you can handle it. You've survived worse. And then there's low frustration tolerance, or as I like to call it, I can't stand it-itis. People whine, I just can't stand waiting in traffic, or I can't stand rejection. Yes, you damn well can. You might not like it, but you won't explode, you won't die, and you'll get through it just fine.
I must say you use a lot of fun, catchy terms to highlight your points.
People seem to love them. They demystify the concepts, make them easy to relate to and understand. That's the whole point.
So they're all forms of irrational thinking?
The irrational beliefs are what keep people stuck. The good news, you can challenge them, crush them, and stop making yourself miserable. That's what REBT is all about, getting rid of this nonsense and thinking in ways that actually help you.
Yes, I know you've talked about many specific manners in which people tend to think or ruminate about things that gets them into trouble. Like, for example, masturbation?
Musterbation is one of those catchy terms I coined to highlight a common irrational belief pattern. It's about those rigid musts we impose on ourselves, others, or the world. Like I must always succeed, or people must treat me fairly. People are musting all the time. I must, must. It's musterbation, see?
Dr. Ellis, tell me about this concept of unconditional self acceptance. This notion that people should stop rating themselves as a whole and instead just evaluate their actions. Can you explain why this is such a crucial concept for you?
Absolutely. See, one of the biggest mistakes people make is globally rating their entire self-worth based on a few screw-ups. Someone fails a test, gets rejected, or makes a mistake at work, and suddenly they start thinking, I'm a complete loser, worthless, and no good rotten skunk. You see, that's nonsense. The truth is, you're a fallible, imperfect human being, just like the rest of us. You're not the sum total of your failures or even your successes. You're just you, a complex person who sometimes does well and sometimes doesn't. And that's perfectly okay. We're not robots. And hell, even a robot has a malfunction every now and then. Instead of condemning your entire self, just rate your actions. You made a mistake? Fine, learn from it. You acted like a jerk? Fine, apologize and do better next time. But don't go labeling yourself as bad or unworthy. That's irrational, and it'll make you miserable. People who practice unconditional self-acceptance stop beating the hell out of themselves for every little flaw. They recognize they are not their mistakes. They are not their past. They are not a fixed, unchangeable thing. And once you stop rating yourself as a whole, you become freer to grow, improve, and actually enjoy life. You stop worrying about proving your worth and start living. That's the damn point.
Dr. Ellis, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced in promoting REBT and how have you overcome them?
Oh, there were plenty of challenges, believe me. The biggest one, fighting off the psychoanalytic dinosaurs who were running the show when I started out. Back then, therapy meant digging into your childhood for years, talking about your mother, and lying on a couch waiting for some mystical insight to appear. Total waste of time. So when I came along saying, hey, maybe we should actually help people change their thinking instead of analyzing their dreams for a decade, a lot of people in the field weren't thrilled. They called me simplistic, they called me confrontational, I called them ineffective. But here's the thing, REBT works, and I wasn't about to sit around waiting for the establishment to catch up. I did the research. I made sure that REBT wasn't just some academic theory. I got out there and trained real therapists to actually help real people fast. That's why I founded the Ellis Institute, so this work could spread, and therapists wouldn't waste years with clients just nodding along for hours and hours, while the clients talk and the therapist occasionally asks, so how does that make you feel? And yeah, I got into plenty of debates because I don't back down when I know something works. But at the end of the day, I didn't have to win arguments. REBT won on results. People got better and they got better faster. That's what mattered. Now, REBT is known and respected all over the world. Not because I played nice, but because I proved that if you challenge your irrational beliefs and stop making yourself miserable, you'll live a better damn life.
How do you respond to critics who argue that REBT oversimplifies complex emotional issues?
Look, I've heard that argument plenty of times, and it's nonsense. REBT isn't about denying complexity. It's about cutting through the clutter and getting to the root of what's making people miserable. Sure, emotions are complex, but they don't just appear out of thin air. They come from how we think about things. If you believe something irrational, you're going to feel bad. So why not challenge that thinking and change how you feel? Some people think therapy has to be deep and drawn out to be effective, but let's be honest, insight alone doesn't do squat if you don't act on it. REBT gives people a structured way to recognize and change their self-defeating beliefs so they don't stay stuck in misery. And that doesn't mean we ignore the deeper stuff, quite the opposite. We help people dig into why they think the way they do, but instead of just sitting with it, we give them the tools to do something about it. Bottom line, REBT isn't about oversimplifying, it's about making real lasting change. And if that's too simple for some people, well, I'll take simple and effective over complicated and useless any day.
Can you share a memorable case or success story that illustrates the impact of REBT on a client's life?
Yes, there was a gentleman I worked with who was struggling with debilitating anger issues. He would fly off the handle at the smallest provocation, often leading to conflicts at work and strained relationships with family members. He believed that others must always treat him fairly and respectfully, and any perceived slight would trigger intense rage. We delved into the core beliefs underlying his anger. He began to recognize how his rigid expectations were contributing to his emotional reactions. We focused on identifying his triggers and challenging his irrational beliefs, such as I must be treated with respect at all times. I'd like to be treated with respect. I want to be treated with respect. I don't enjoy it when people don't treat me with respect. But the world, the universe, doesn't owe it to me. And if I expect everyone all the time to treat me with respect the way I'd like them to, I'll be sorely disappointed. Disappointed and angry. With practice in cognitive restructuring, he learned to respond more calmly and rationally to frustrating situations. He developed strategies to pause and challenge his automatic thoughts before reacting impulsively. Over time, he reported fewer incidents of explosive anger and improved relationships both at home and at work. What struck me most about this case was witnessing his gradual transformation from a person controlled by anger to someone who gained control over his emotional responses. It was a powerful demonstration of how changing irrational beliefs can lead to profound improvements in behavior and interpersonal relationships.
It's interesting the way you describe the relationship between thoughts and emotions. It seems that the emotion is like the symptom or the indicator that something is wrong, but the intervention is cognitive in nature. Would that be an accurate way to describe it?
Look, your emotions don't control you. People act like their feelings are some wholly untouchable force. Not so. You think stupid thoughts, you feel like crap. Change your thinking, change your life.
What do you think is the most misunderstood aspect of REBT, and how would you clarify it?
People think REBT is about suppressing emotions, like I'm telling them to be some kind of emotionless robot. Bull. I never said you shouldn't feel things. What I said is you don't have to let your emotions run your damn life. People act like emotions just happen to them like some magical force beyond their control. No nonsense. You feel the way you do because of the way you think. Your thoughts create your emotions. So if you're miserable, anxious, or enraged all the time, chances are you're thinking in some irrational, self-defeating way. REBT isn't about telling you not to feel. It's about teaching you not to be a slave to your feelings. You acknowledge them, sure, but then you challenge the irrational beliefs behind them and decide whether that emotion is actually useful. So next time you're freaking out over something, instead of just feeling it, stop and ask yourself, what the hell am I telling myself to feel this way? You challenge it, change it, and stop making yourself suffer over nonsense.
Dr. Ellis, what advice would you give a psychology student early in his or her career?
If you're getting into psychology, don't just swallow everything your professors tell you. Think for yourself. Question the research, challenge assumptions, and most importantly, test things out in the real world. Sitting in a classroom analyzing Freud's theories won't make you a good therapist. Getting out there and actually working with people will. So get your hands dirty. See clients, run groups, practice interventions, screw up, learn from it, and keep going. The best psychologists aren't the ones who memorize the most theories. They're the ones who know what actually works. And let me tell you, this work isn't easy. People will bring you their messiest problems, their worst fears, their irrational, self-defeating thinking. If you're not careful, you'll take it all home with you and drive yourself nuts. So don't just take care of your clients, take care of yourself. If you burn out, you're no good to anyone. Oh, and one more thing, don't get too damn impressed with yourself. Being a psychologist doesn't make you special. What matters is whether you actually help people. So drop the ego, keep learning, and always focus on what gets results. That's what really counts.
Dr. Ellis, thank you so much for speaking with me today. Your contribution to the field of psychology is tremendous. You have been a great inspiration to me in learning about the practice of cognitive therapy. I'd like to ask if you have any parting thoughts or words for us before we end.
All right, let me leave you with this. Stop making yourself miserable. Seriously. People go through life whining, catastrophizing, and telling themselves all sorts of nonsense about how the world must be different or how they can't stand something. That's just bull. If you take one thing from this, it's this. Challenge your own thinking. When you catch yourself making up some irrational crap about how life is unbearable, unfair, or impossible, call yourself out on it. Don't just sit there feeling sorry for yourself. Do the work and retrain your brain. Life's going to throw a lot of crap at you, no doubt, but you can handle it. And if you stop buying into all your irrational beliefs, you'll be a hell of a lot happier. Now go apply this stuff and stop screwing yourself over.
Very sage advice. Thank you.
Are we done? I'm ready to go get a roast beef sandwich.
I think so. Thank you, Dr. Ellis, for this lively discussion of your theory and practice of REBT. You're quite a character, just like the city you live in.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love talking about this stuff.
Thank you for listening to Mind Tricks Radio. I hope you have enjoyed the program. For more information about Mind Tricks, please go to my website, www.waikikihealth.com. Please be sure to subscribe to Mind Tricks podcast and accompanying blog to be notified of new episodes of Mind Tricks. Please be sure to follow Mind Tricks on Facebook by following and liking posts by myself, your host, Dr. Aaron Kaplan.